Okay, good morning. We arrived here in Krakow last night after midnight, and here it's early in the morning. We're here at the Ramah Shul. This trip, of course, is brought to you by J. Root of England, who are bringing Jewish tradition to young men and women around the world through incredible experiences, connecting with our roots and connecting with our past. So let me just tell you, the custom here in Krakow was on the 33rd day of the Omer, on Lag BaOmer, the Rav would always give a drasha of Shmaitza and Agada, of halachos and agadata, especially to answer up the halachos of the Ramah, as the Ramah's yard site was on Lag BaOmer. And this was the practice of Reb Shimon Sofer, the Rav of Krakow, and later his son, Rav Bunim Sofer, who is the Mamala Makam of his father. And Rav Bunim Sofer once gave the following drasha on a Lag BaOmer. He said, the yard set of the Ramah always comes out of one of the three parshios, Emar, Behar, Bechukoisai. To indicate Emar, letters, Emar, Ramah. The Ramah's yard set is always Parshas Emar, that whatever the Ramah has said, Behar, it's like it's given on Har Sinai, Bechukoisai, it's a statute that we accept as if it was given on Har Sinai. As we're going to see the greatness of the Ramah, and it says on his grave that Mi Moshe v'yad Moshe loikam k'Moshe. Literally from the Rambam until the Ramah, nobody has arisen as great as the Ramah. Now let me just tell you a little bit about the history of this shul, the Beis HaKnesses Chadash of the Ramah. The Ramah was born in the year 1530. Actually, that's according to some. In the Sefer Gedolei Hadoros, it says 1532. In the Oitzer Yisrael, it says 1520. He was called Rav Moshe Isserlis. Ramah, Rav Moshe Isserlis. Why is he called Rav Moshe Isserlis? That means Isserlis is like his cognomen. His father's name was Rav Yisrael, so he sort of took his father's name as a last name, Rav Moshe Isserlis. His father was Rav Yisrael. He was a Talmud Chacham mentioned in the Darkei Moshe. The Ramah wrote a Perush on the tour called Darkei Moshe. His father was a very wealthy man, was a great philanthropist, was a Parnes Umanhig. In fact, the Ramah refers to his father in his Shal Sechuvas. He says in Siman Pei Gimel, he says, Moiri HaKotzen Kemar Yisrael Shalit Hanikra Moshe Isserlis Mi Krakow. So he refers to his father as a great philanthropist and Jewish leader, and his father built this shul for the Ramah in the year 1553. So it means the Ramah was approximately 23 years old. But let's just learn some of the tragic story of why his father built the shul. In the year 5312, that's 1551, 1552, misfortune struck the family of the Ramah. On Yud Aleph Sivan, his 20-year-old wife, Golda, passed away. Golda was the daughter of Rav Shalom Shachna. On Yud Teves, the Ramah's mother passes away. On Chav Zayin Sivan, Drezel, his maternal grandmother, passed away. So in order to perpetuate their memory, the Ramah's father built the shul in memory of the Ramah's wife, the Ramah's mother, and the Ramah's grandmother. We'll just conclude with the following. Actually, I just want to point your attention to the area outside of the Ramah Shul, because there's an interesting point of halachic controversy. Is one allowed to get married on a Friday night? Are you allowed to get married on a Friday night? The Ramah in Orach Chaim in Siman Shin Lametes writes, one is not allowed to lechatchila get married on a Friday night. However, says Ramah, v'yesh matirin, some allow one to get married on a Friday night in a situation where somebody does not have a wife and kids. And says Ramah, you could even be machnis, a woman l'chuppah on Friday night. Says Ramah, even though we don't paskin this way, meaning we paskin you should not get married on a Friday night. Nevertheless, soimchin al zeh b'shas hadchak. You can rely on it under pressing circumstances, because what's going to happen if, especially in the olden days, the two sides had to agree about the dowry, how many chickens, how many cows, how many goats, the two sides would give each other. And sometimes the dispute would be quite contentious. And what's going to happen if it carries on and they already have a caterer and the food is ready, but they haven't yet agreed about whether to finalize it, and they agree right before Shabbos. And if they don't go through with the wedding Friday night, it's going to be a loss of money and very embarrassing to throw out all the food. Says Rama, under very limited circumstances, so as not to embarrass the groom and the bride, one would be allowed to get married on a Friday night. And in fact, if you look in the Rama Siman Kuf Chaf Hey, the Rama permitted a certain circumstance of an orphan girl who finally they agreed to marry her off on a Friday to get married on a Friday night. And actually, this was a point of great controversy, and many Rabbanim in Krakow and all over did not approve of the Rama's leniency to allow this chasana to take place on a Friday night. But here's the story. The story goes that a specific wedding was taking place on a Friday night. However, they were not being careful on the Hilchos Shabbos, and they were playing music, and it was getting late, and the Ramah said, watch out, don't continue, so Shabbos is coming, and the Ramah gave a warning, and the Ramah gave a second warning, and the Ramah says, last chance. And the people, they were continue to play and to continue to make the preparations. And the Ramah got very upset at these people. Why are you desecrating the Shabbos? Suddenly, this area that we're standing on, the ground opened up, swallowed the chassan and the kala and all of the guests, and there was no trace of them. And until World War II, there was actually a monument that stood here with a plaque that declared for all time that the details of the story. And since that story, the custom in Krakow is that they don't get married on Friday night because of that particular situation. So let's just conclude. Here we're standing, the Ramah, we mentioned that his yard site is Lag BaOmer. So at the Levaya of the Ramah, the Maspid, the eulogizer, said, the Ramah is very connected to the number 33. He passed away on the 33rd day of the Omer. In fact, legend has it that he was 33 years old, but that's not in fact the case. He was at least 42 years old. But they felt because the Ramah, and the Ramah wrote 33 Svarim, so they wanted to say 33 attributes and accolades of the Ramah, and they were stuck at number 32. And there was somebody in the crowd who said, I have the 33rd accolade of the Ramah. And that is every year on Purim, the end of the day, when people were a little tipsy. The Ramah would go around from shutter to shutter, banging, don't forget to daven Marav, don't forget to daven Marav. That was the 33rd accolade they said about the Ramah at his Levaya. So it's a zechus to be here at the Ramah Shul, and we'll hear more about him inside.